You're live.
Good, okay, we'll call the meeting back to order. And we have priorities update chart.
Yep, so council, this is one of the updates we do from time to time on the priorities chart. Sorry?
And let us know what you got done and what you didn't.
Exactly. So this builds on two things. One, obviously, the workshop that staff and council held on February 15th to review the core priorities. So council at that point recommended a couple of changes, additions, so we captured those. And then subsequent to that, staff have done some further housekeeping in terms of where things are at, or looking at some action items to advance those priorities as well. So I'll just run through these quickly, just in case you've got any questions about those changes. So in terms of the economic development priority area, so council's direction included the addition of two things. One was the arts and culture strategy. So that's been highlighted as part of the sector marketing strategy. Under rural internet, there was direction from council was to add the meeting the development of Scotia, which we'll be doing later on today. Yeah. And those are the key changes there. Other than for staff, there was just some updates to the sort of timing deliverables around the sector marketing strategy piece itself. So any questions about any of those priorities listed for the economic development priority area?
Just something else.
Yeah, of course.
I'm on page 1 still. Where are you?
Yeah, just that. Back to, still on page 1. We're on the same page.
I don't see the word economic in here.
It's at the very
At the top.
Yeah.
I'm at the bottom.
On the bottom.
Last one, action. Parade Square beautification project.
Right.
When you say done under completion, what do you mean by that?
Phase one.
That's the phase 1 part. So the
Which is?
the benches and walkway and there's no
The landscape work.
Okay.
So that's the constant.
But there was some consultation and I understood there's going to be additional consultation.
That's right. And so
That's where
staff
I'm coming from.
understood, yeah, and I recall, councillor, that you requested that that council be brought up to speed on the consultation that's taken place. So Olivia Corcoran is going to be leading that initiative, and so she'll be coming to council with an update on that and next steps.
Perfect. Just I make sure I didn't miss something.
No, absolutely.
That's
All
the
good.
top of page 2 actually is the next 2 items, community engagement. Most of that has been done, and so you'll be getting the consultation summary and a decision point coming up to let us know whether you want to proceed with it, if you want more engagement time, or take it off the list as a don't proceed with phase 2. So that'll be coming to you.
Gotcha.
So, and I did forget an additional staff addition under operational priorities for economic development is the enhanced physician retention program after receiving the grant. So that's work that we'll be advancing, and that again, Olivia is going to be leading that charge. Okay, so that's been added to that as an operational priority. Any further questions about that priority area? Good. Next one is environmental stewardship. Direction from council was to add a report on PACE program options. So that's going to be coming to council next week. So that is underway. That's it for that section.
So what section is that?
Sorry, environmental stewardship. That's the green.
Oh, so everything's so small.
I know. It's
Where are we at community wells?
community wells. That's under. I believe that's listed under infrastructure. Oh no, right. Community wells. That's right here. My bad. So yes, Tammy, our CET, is leading that charge, and so she'll be bringing something to council. I'm not sure about timeline wise, but that's certainly we recognize that that's something that council is like big stress on. So we'll be bringing something around that too.
Yeah, it looks like we're gonna have a dry summer.
Yeah. Well, and it's interesting too on the as an aside, there's some discussion on the AMAN's network about community wells. So other municipalities are looking into that too.
Okay.
I do on that particular priority area. So there, so on page 3 of that 1, 2, 3, page 3 of that priority area, on the enviro toilets. So I'm glad to see that Chad is also here, because he may or may not want to type up or contribute to the discussion. So I understand that within the, the discussion that we had back in March, we identified the 4 enviro toilets within our open spaces plan. And when we moved ahead on that, it was just decided in the budget, so I'm good with all that. But within that discussion around on March the 3rd, when we talked about phase 1, which I think this is phase 1, the 4, we talked about once we get, well into that, if you will, et cetera, we'll be looking at the rollout of the, or the consideration of the rollout or the additional enviro toilets. And I'm not sure, I just want to confirm, I guess, that the listing for enviro toilets is, and it's an old list, it's what we had come up with as part of that healthy, Canada Healthy Communities Initiative application. And so there were 9, I think, within that list. I think, I'm not sure, I don't have my reading glasses on now, but there were 9. So I'm just asking about those additional ones on that list, not within the 4 that we're doing this year. For example, Fox Point was one that we talked about specifically. Yeah, so just wondering on timelines, ballpark. If you don't have a timeline, I'm okay with that too, but just to kind of keep it on the front burner.
Yes, so I would suggest that the idea was to go through this year. We were going to issue an RFP for the environmental, to select the model that would best suit our needs, and see how that goes. And then at some time through that project, we then begin thinking about the phase 2, what those locations are, suitability, how it worked out with the phase 1, and start making those decisions about other locations. I would say, yes, at some point in time in there, there would be a report with the Met Council for input on those additional locations. And selection of the.
So those additional locations and additional list and so on, am I looking at the right list when it comes to those ones that we identified that were important as part of our Canada Healthy Communities Initiative, right? So that particular list, I'm still on the right page.
That would be the starting point.
Okay.
We go from there. We bring those back for council input. For final decision.
Very good. Thank you.
Would we like to add that as another action item under this priority, just to keep it on the?
Well, it's already there.
Well, you know what, it wouldn't hurt to have it listed, because I know that within this whole document, we're looking out years.
Oh, yeah, so it's next phase.
So therefore,
Yeah,
it wouldn't hurt to have it in black and white on here.
Okay. We can make that adjustment.
I'm not sure, Jed, we sort of add the porta potties to the sites where we're looking at putting enviro toilets.
They most likely overlap, but not necessarily. So, again, that's part of the decision making. So if there's currently an enviro toilet or a porta potty on site, and it's a potential location for an enviro toilet, that absolutely could be. But that might be there for a particular reason that it wouldn't be there. There could be additional sites that currently don't have a porta potty.
Because I sort of tend to agree with Tina. I thought when we made that list, we had the Fox Point each of those ones, but those are the ones that we had picked that were going to get the environment.
And Fox Point is on the list
Yeah,
from
I
the
know
Healthy
it is.
Communities application
Yeah.
for 2 years ago.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, so I guess what I'm saying is that's the starting point. Is that list?
Okay, that's great. Thank you.
Okay, next.
Great. Next priority area is governance and engagement. There's no direction from council and changes here. We did a couple of things in terms of some housekeeping. We, for example, lumped all of the bylaw and policy development pieces together in one area. So you can see that of this section, it's on the third page rather of this section. So they're just for ease of reference. So all of the current policy and bylaw work that we've either recently completed or are undertaking is lumped together there. We also added to that then the code of conduct policy and the infrastructure and fund development policy to the existing list. We also added, if I can find it, we just included a piece here on asset management. Oh yes, there it is. So just we're sort of revisiting with the new infrastructure and operations staff and their background with asset management. We're revisiting what we can do in terms of tools. So staff has struck up a new sort of interdepartmental team, and we've met with a solutions provider we already use and that we could sort of possibly use for developing our asset management. This is all very administrative, but for developing that work, especially as we start looking at building new infrastructure, and we can start on the ground in terms of capturing the data around those assets.
Just behind that is our advisory committee. I know that Eric's been very busy with fire issues, but they may be resolved, who knows, shortly. And if they are, I'd like to move, if possible, and council agrees, to maybe move that up as sooner than later.
The fire advisory committee work.
It's already on our list to do next. We're working on the draft right now and some options for council right now.
Okay, so I'm gonna put ASAP.
Yeah, I know it's coming right up.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Any further questions on that priority area? Okay. Moving on to healthy and vibrant communities. Again, there was no direction from council on this area in terms of changes or additions. But what staff's done is just did some housekeeping in terms of lumping all of the work we're doing around accessibility. So under accessibility planning now, in addition to the work of empowering and work of our accessibility coordinator and the accessibility committee work plan, we've also put the included the information we're doing around the enabling accessibility fund grant that we receive for accessible washrooms, notably in Wild Rose and possibly in either administration building or annex, depending on a whole host of things. The work we're doing around an accessibility audit to sort of help guide that work and so on. So we've put all that in one place again, so then the council and staff and the community can see all of the work we're doing in one area around accessibility. Okay, and there'll be additional things to come as we move along. Any comments on that priority area? And then finally, and certainly not least, infrastructure and service delivery. The direction by council was to develop and submit an application to the Investing in Canada Infrastructure Program stream. So that's the environmental quality stream. That's what we did for the Village of Chester wastewater system renewal and expansion. So we submitted that application on April 1st. So results are obviously pending. And then beyond that, staff just made some changes to timelines and sort of updated a lot of the staff leads and so on. Again, given all of the changes with the new staff and so on. So we were able to sort of clean up a lot of that because we had a lot of vacant placeholders in terms of who's going to lead that work. Now everybody's got their marching orders. So, so those are the changes to that priority area. So that concludes that.
Question?
Yes, of course.
The application was made April 1st. Could I have a sense, and maybe Dan would know, when we might expect to hear, there's a timeline?
It's not clear. In the past, the window has been broad. So, for example, the previous one for that was a year before we heard. But in consulting with the provincial engineer coordinating this project, she made reference to that they were really stressing project-ready projects in order, because they wanted to wrap this program up. This was the last disbursement of this program in terms of the bilateral agreement with the federal government. So that would suggest that this may well proceed more quickly than previous intakes. But I have no guarantee.
I have no further use of.
If it is rejected or not approved, whatever the right word is, we need a plan B.
That's right.
Do we have a plan B?
Not yet. So that's something that certainly Manny and his team will have to sort of give some serious thought to as to what that plan B would be.
Even if we don't get the funding, we can't do nothing.
Yeah, and I think one of the things certainly.
That's my opinion.
Yeah, and I think well, one of the things that we did in terms of building that project for submission is to sort of make sure that we understood what the distinct phases are. And so I think that that's certainly something we could bring back to council with that and the costs around those, so we could.
But I think we need to be ready to react either way. So if it's a no, I don't want to go back to square one.
we do that.
Understood. So we should definitely flag that, prepare for that sooner rather than later. Okay.
Just a question to there, the crosswalks, are they in the TIR's hands or? I know we're looking for approval for our different crosswalks under graphics, we can't do last one, I just wondering where we're at with that.
Yes.
Is it in the hands of the TIR, are we waiting or?
Okay.
Morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Currently, there's 4 sidewalks that are being awarded today potentially for the design. And with those will be a couple crosswalks. And also part of this ICRP is a number of those rectangular flashing beacons.
That's the ones on top of it,
Yeah, we got 4 of those, sorry, 7 of those lined up. And for approvals of transportation, and they actually pay it for install them and then give us the bill. So once they have our list, then they can take care of that fairly quickly. We also want to give them the list for the speed radar signs at the same time. So Tammy will be reaching out if she hasn't already.
Got it last night.
Yes.
yeah. Yeah,
Okay, yeah, and then we'll get those going.
I know I have to have the Harvard Savings Club adding to the top of the list because of the
That's-
defense, so that's on there.
Yeah.
Okay, so wait and see.
So we're gonna pay TIR to put them in, and we'll just need to.
That's right, and we do have a preference for the speed radar signs, so hopefully they'll go along with what we asked for there, so. At least some give and take, but
Always.
we'll see what happens.
You know, that's-
Okay, thank you.
Actually, can I just ask a question, sorry?
No, you're right.
Actually, it's directly related back to what you just said around the 7 sites identified
Yes,
that you're putting forward. So when I look at, and I'm not sure this is the case, when I look at the capital budget sheets from our most recent budget approvals,
Yeah.
can I assume that those 7 are the 7 that are listed in order? Like the 4 this year, 22, 23, and then there were only 4 listed under the rapid rectangular flashing light beacons.
all right,
There are only 4 there that I'm looking at. And then there, the years following, we've got them identified. So I'm just curious where those additional, where the 7 are then, I guess.
yeah, I don't have that
No,
right
that's-
with me, but I
of course you-
understand there's
it's okay.
1 per district.
Right.
And it's the latest there, and that's what's getting put in there, and then once we have a better idea.
That's the speed radar.
That's the speed radar.
Oh, the speed
that's
radar,
okay.
we're at
That's-
6.
These are the flashing lights for the intersections.
Yeah.
So maybe there's not 7 beacons.
Oh, there's 7 flashing
Okay.
light ones that we
Okay,
have.
that's fair.
before.
That's fair. I wouldn't expect you to know that right off. Like, I
Yeah.
mean, you just got in your head, right? I mean, this is
Yeah.
me being a bit ridiculous, but the 7, so I'm just curious where those 7, yeah, because I have an interest, like we all do, and I'm paying attention, right?
Yeah,
We all
I'll
are.
touch base with Tammy and
Yeah, yeah.
get it there.
Oh, I can come over and see her too after, and because I've got my capital.
Yeah,
budget
but I'm pretty
sheets for
sure
this
it's 1
year,
per
so-
district, I can't remember, I do remember the Hubbard's one, because that's the last one added.
Yeah.
The rest, I really don't
No.
know, to be honest, at this time.
The list that we have for the strategic plan says 329 at the Sailing Club, Highway 3 at Walker Cut, Highway 3 East River Trail Crossing, Highway 3 Lawrence Hat Road, Highway 3 and Highway 12.
Alright.
So there's 5 of them listed
That
in the
for this
strategic
year.
priorities for this year.
Um,
And those are they're flashing.
But yet there's only
Yeah.
4 in our capital budget sheet.
I think we added that.
Added
We
the
added
sailing.
We added the Sailing Club.
Okay,
We
right.
moved, we were directed to advance the sailing club
Right.
because of the international. event.
That's right, but it
Yeah.
didn't get updated for the
Yeah.
May 4th,
Yeah.
or sorry, for the April
And once
April
it's,
14th presentation.
that's right, once it's submitted to the province, they'll say which ones are to go, which ones aren't to go. And hopefully give us a cost, we can come back and add the budget or select another location if we have to.
Right, right.
Eric, you had, did you have?
I did have a question. This might be a broad question, I'm not sure, but the Piglet project that was on, I think on board's list, I think. That doesn't show up here at all. So where is that in the?
No, so there, as in the Infrastructure Canada approval, Pig Loop Active Transportation and Improvements was identified in one of the future years.
just, I know it's in the capital budget.
Was that for the right of way? Sorry, can I- was that for the right of way there for the lift station? Okay.
No, it was an active transfer. It was looking at the,
What was coming out of the.
1.6 million.
coming out, well, the traffic study helped inform what might be the best choice.
Of course, the
For active
1.3 cul-de-sac in the
Yeah.
middle.
Okay,
Yeah.
We gotta do something with Big Blue, but it's a priority, and I just wanna know where that is in the capital project. Phew.
My recollection, I don't know that there's anything in this year's capital.
No,
for
not
it.
this
It would
year.
be
We
a-
haven't
It
decided
would be
what
a
we're doing.
discussion, what we would have to do this year is a discussion on next steps for the traffic study and the workshop.
especially if we change.
Yeah, we had to decide what we were gonna do first.
In that, we'll be able to, I know the capital budget will have it included. I do recall that I think there were 4 or 5 years worth of projects. And the Pig Loop was not for this current construction season. I'm just not certain what year we had identified that work, but there'll be some just planning and decision-making in advance of the.
Well, there's a number of decisions, other decision that we have to make with this new traffic study as well as the possible one-way streets, particularly when it comes to Water Street. Suggestion that we make that one way.
Yes.
Those are all things that I think you just need to know where they are in the system. I just hope they're not 5 years down the road. We need to look at those now.
Yeah.
So how do we do that? How do we look at them, not today, but make sure they're on our radar and not just sort of put on the back burner?
I would say all projects are on the radar. They're just current budget year priorities would attract the immediate attention of staff. Future years would be tackled in the year that they're currently identified.
I just got a message that Highway 3 and Pig Loop is in the 2023 capital,
2022, next year.
from the plan, yeah.
Okay.
So it's in next year's.
That's what I'm being told. It would be in the capital, or the 5-year capital plan, identified it as a project for next fiscal year.
So sometime between now and next year, we have to decide what we're gonna do.
I need to get some information on that to provide some residents who have been inquiring. So I need to be up to speed on that. And also getting a little bit of an inquiry, I guess, from other people, other sources. I just don't want to. It's an issue that's become important to me to have information. I'll leave it at that. I can explain more detail. I need to be up to speed on that project.
You'll have to come in and say.
I will.
Yeah.
I'll do that. Not this afternoon, Dan.
No.
But I'll explain it to you when we meet.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any further questions about the priorities chart as updated as of May 3rd?
That's it.
Okay,
That's it.
so just looking for council's approval, adoption of that chart?
Well, we've already done it more or less.
Yeah.
So we want to make that motion. So. Second.
Second.
Discussion, all those in favor, opposed, motion's carried.
Thank
Thank
you
you.
all.
You have the approval, John.
Perfect.
Okay, now I am. Corporate and Strategic Management Quarterly Report.
I'm just gonna share my presentation here. Pull this up onto the screen.
This is 7.7.
Here we go. Okay, so corporate and strategic management quarterly update. The first item that I'd like to just touch on is accessibility. So Ellen has been working with a team internally on a couple of different items. She's been working with staff on the drafting of the outdoor dining bylaw and the accessibility pieces in there. She's been doing some work around our accessibility audits for the municipal buildings and working with procurement for that. And supporting the process to renovate the Wild Rose washrooms to increase accessibility. But the big piece that she's been doing is working with the IT and communication staff on information and communication section of the accessibility action plan. So recall that the regional plan had a bunch of different lists or a bunch of different projects for us to do in different priority areas. So what we've done is regionally, we broke those out so that one unit is working on one specific area. So for us, that's the communications and information section right now. And then what we hope to do is develop a guide that guides our work internally, but then the other units can take it and adapt it as they need to for their own work, so that we're not duplicating all of the groundwork for each unit. So for us then, that also means that Modal she's been working with Modal on the goods and services area and the built environment area. Town of Mahone Bay has been involved as well with the goods and services area. Town of Bridgewater, they started with transportation, so they've been working on the transportation pieces with Ellen. And primarily because they're the ones with the public transportation system, and that's the biggest piece of the transportation for municipalities. And then the town of Lunenburg has been working on built environment along with the municipality of the District of Lunenburg. So that is one area that hasn't been covered yet, and that's employment. So probably the first one to get done, their section will then turn their attention to the employment section. That's probably going to be us, because I think we're the furthest along with the communications and information work. Also with accessibility, some of the joint projects she's been working on, she's been researching options for some training programs. And I think the first piece we sent out an email with some virtual training options to council and staff. And then she's been working on some regional training for council, I think is probably the next piece we're going to look at there. Last time we told you she was working with the Peach unit at Dow on a potential project, and we were partnering with the municipal units locally to do some research on rural accessibility and age-friendly assessments. They didn't get that funding. So the project's been scaled back a little bit. They're doing some work with the town of Mahone Bay, or sorry, the town of Bridgewater and Modal to get some projects started with a summer student, and then we'll be able to piggyback on some of that work. So the big Peach project isn't happening, but there's still some work being done in that area. Lunenburg County Accessibility Advisory Committee. So recommendations came from the mayors who act as the nominating committee. We appointed our members. We're just waiting for the other units to appoint the members to the committee formally. And then once that happens, we'll get that committee up and running again. And the first task will really be working with the committee to sort of redefine their role now that they've done the first phase and got their approval of the we've got a regional plan, so now it rolls into monitoring and working with implementation. So that committee will need a little bit of discussion around what role they play in that. So, all right, moving on to special projects. You had a first report on boundary review. You'll be seeing a second report coming forward soon that looks at phase one. That's the number of council districts. So you'll just be seeing the report that makes some recommendations around number of districts, and then gets some direction on consultation for that and consultation for the next phases as we move that forward. The personnel policy review and salary and benefits review was a low value. They were both two separate projects, low value procurement awarded to Gerald Walsh. We had a kickoff meeting this week with them to talk about both of those projects. We're hoping the timeline we're about a month later than we had anticipated we would be, but it still looks like we'll probably have something in around October, November. And what we really want to be able to make sure we have is that if there's any recommendations coming out of that about salary and benefits that would have an impact on budget for next year, that we have that information by the end of the calendar year to roll that into the budget process. But we've also asked that personnel policy take priority over some of the salary and benefits review stuff right now, because the overall timeline put us at October roughly. And the personnel policy, we think, needs to move ahead of that, just with retention issues and recruitment issues and all of that kind of stuff. So that's the order of that one. And in doing that, we're going to be looking at two teams. The management team will be the working group for the salary and benefits review. And then probably there will be three of us that work as the working group for the personnel policy, and we'll look at doing some staff engagement focus groups and stuff like that so that we engage staff. Rural internet, you're going to get a bit of an update this afternoon or this morning and later on in a workshop. And so I will leave that one and not go too far into that, because we can talk about that in the workshop. Transition.
I do like, sorry, that we joined the province-wide advocacy.
Province-wide advocacy network, yes, we joined that. Yeah. And there were some new projects announced by DNS, so they'll update us on that today. Transition 2050 work continues. Within the next 2 or 3 weeks, you'll be seeing a report on Transition 2050 and some options for some action plan items. And I should also mention that you'll be seeing PACE bylaw information next week. That'll be coming to you. Wastewater services study, we facilitated the review and completion of the wastewater services study and the next steps on that. And so that work has really been operationalized now and handed over to infrastructure and operations. The strategic planning, you just had that update on the priorities update. Grant management, Jonathan's been doing a lot of grant management work lately, applied to the Culture Innovation Fund Healthy Communities Grant, or that was received, we received that grant. The ICIP for the Village of Chester wastewater project, and then there's a couple more that we'll be discussing later on the agenda. Falling behind here because I'm following paper, sorry. Policy development, the vaccination policy was approved and then rescinded. We worked on the expense policy, council's procedure, which was approved this morning, so was the expense policy. We were doing work on the outdoor dining, which you had a meeting on Monday to give first reading to that. Just so you know, the process in that one is that will come back to council for second reading. And it'll be a special council meeting, which we agreed to this morning. So that special council will allow us to get that process started and do the advertising for that. It saves a week or two in delay in that, and lets the applications get processed a little faster. And then next up, we've got the vendor bylaw, the code of conduct, the development fund policy, the outdoor lighting options. So I just want to sort of give you a summary of what we've got in the hopper there. Fire services.
Outdoor lighting, just give me a little bit more on that as well.
That was a request to look at outdoor lighting for the village and regulating. Yes, that's the one you brought up. So that'll be a report coming forward.
Subsequent to that, there's a letter that had come in from Nancy Murray dealing with outdoor lighting, some of it which is on our gazebo. I think we need to address that at the same time. Can we roll that in? Maybe
I have, yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Fair services, I'm not going to go over point by point. The major item here that I want to let you know is that the fire services review, the subcommittee finished their work. They presented an initial report and some recommendations to the steering committee, the larger steering committee. The steering committee is now going to go meet again, and their next step is to come up with some recommendations. So we have the consultant's recommendations in the report. The report and the consultant's recommendations will be coming to council, along with recommendations from the steering committee that prioritize and give a proposed work plan. So you'll be receiving all of that at the same time. And I think we're looking at trying to get that done in the next couple months, but that's a large committee, and And with evening meetings and fire service, sometimes it takes a little longer, but the intention is they're moving along. I think they've got a meeting scheduled for June. And so we'll progress that along as fast as we can, so that hopefully by summer, probably will slow it down a little bit, but hopefully by September, we're in front of you with some recommendations.
to do something.
I have a question on that slide. It's the point, working on District 4 boundary review in the Chester Grant area.
Oh, that was just some work regarding,
There's an error in where the
There's-
line is.
there's a potential error.
It's not consistent with the boundary line of the district.
Okay.
Yeah. And then, again, working on the terms of reference for the fire advisory committee, so that will be coming forward as well in the next month or so. Remo, updating the status of the comfort centers, that work continues. And we've been asked by staff council to review the comfort station policy and the 72-hour shelter in place policy. So again, another report that will be coming forward to council regarding that. And I will not go over too much more. Gore Tate was providing AEC services to the town of Mahone Bay. We've switched that over to Brandon, and he's doing that now.
Comfort station, I'll go back to that.
Yeah.
I forwarded a letter, I think you, Dan, the other Dan, writing about, we want to use the church any further for a comfort station. I don't feel that's something I can respond to. I think I need it responded to. Has anyone responded? to
Yeah,
it?
I copied you on an email. You may not have gotten it, but
May
I
have
think that
gotten it, but I
meeting,
probably haven't read it.
that meeting is today. I think Bruce
Okay.
is meeting with them today.
Good, so I can scratch that out.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Health and safety, so the year-end safety report was presented to council. You know that we've been doing work around the COVID-19 policies, that's starting to wind down. So really where they're going to ramp up their work is on ergonomics, an ergonomics program and a new policy around ergonomics.
Yeah.
I won't spend too long on this, except to say that social media is up. You can see our top 10 pages. The one thing that you should be aware of is that the COVID-19 microsite that we had done, we have removed, we've taken that down. We weren't seeing a lot of activity happening there, and with the restrictions and the state of emergency lifted, we took that site down. Jen's been doing a lot of communications support, social media updates, live streaming. She's been supporting the Equity, Diversity and Inclusion Committee.
She's great.
She's been doing some work around the accessibility plan implementation, some anti-racism work and regional survey and presentations. And then you can see she's done a few campaigns. So Make Your Move, Best of Chester Business Awards, Volunteer Week, May Best, Chester Built Forum survey, the work that's being done around that. And then, yeah, that covers that. And then Erin.
On the investment attraction side in Q4, we responded to 7 business inquiries. They were in the food and beverage, manufacturing, business services, and accommodations sectors. 3 of them were from NSBI referrals.
Sorry, what's that?
Nova Scotia Business Inc. And then 2 were residents that have started businesses and then are looking at starting businesses, and then the other couple have connections with family or cottages in the area. We had 485 visitors to investchester.ca and 2 people who subscribed. So you're able to sign up for news items on there. We have not started that initiative yet. Once we build up a good subscriber base, we'll probably start sending out some news items there through email. Investchester.ca, the top 5 countries who visited the site, by far it's domestic visitors in Canada. Then comes the US and United Kingdom, Qatar, and Turkey. This was in Q4. The top 5 pages visited on InvestChester. Number 1 is quality of life. Number 2 is the commercial snapshot. So that's our sites and buildings page, which gives an overview of our commercial sites and buildings, as well as the Kaiser Meadow Industrial Park is on there. About Chester is number 3, business resources. So the business resources page is a bit of a navigation service, so outlining what is available for funding and support when it comes to starting a business or growing your business. And then number 5 is the Kaiser Meadow Industrial Park page. On Kaiser Meadow, we're continuing negotiations on a current sale at the moment. That's still ongoing. We have, in Q4, we started phase 2 of the environmental site assessment to look at the quality of the water. That is complete. So that memo for information is coming to you guys very soon. And we've been working as well on getting Kaiser Meadow, well, if you recall in past updates, the Nova Scotia Innovation Hub has this inventory assets for the bioeconomy for the industrial sites in Nova Scotia. They looked at 5,000 sites, narrowed it to 15. We're one of the 15 sites that are going to promote globally. So we've had an info session and received an initial site assessment from Turner and Drake, and they're actually going to do an on-site assessment this month, I think it is. On physician recruitment and retention, you guys are aware we received $15,000 in funding for us to have more enhanced retention strategies. And we delivered 2 welcome boxes. One was for a medical resident on rotation, and the other was for a physician tour.
Those were just recent or relative.
Q4, yeah. On tourismchester.ca, we had just over 4,000 visitors in Q4. The top countries would be Canada, the US, and the UK, Germany, and Ireland. The top 10 pages, Sensi was number 1 in Q4 with Sensi Spa, the Nordic Spa.
You know, don't mean to interrupt you,
Yeah,
but
go ahead.
I can't remember if you remember when they came in and did the presentation? And we thought, man, this is great, and it's just amazing what they're doing there. Yeah, they were just young and moved here with their family. Yes, I hear rave reviews about it, so that's great.
Yeah, it's a great asset for us. The Legend of Oak Island was number 2, then Castle Rock comes in at number 3, which is great. And then 4 is just fun facts about Nova Scotia. It's a little write-up we have on there. And then number 5 is where you can stay in the municipality.
That was a big page.
There's a few on there.
Oh, they're gonna be the new book. Yeah.
On social media for Tourism Chester, our new page likes are up, as well as followers. And then on the bottom there, I highlighted Facebook page reach and Instagram reach. So that's just an interesting stat. That means that's the number of people who have seen content from our page or about our page in Q4. So 5,700 for Facebook in Q4 and 1,300 for Instagram. Other economic development updates, you've got an update already about outdoor dining. We had 24 interactions with local businesses, and that was around, some of it was navigation support, some of it was expansion, which is great to hear. There's a few of our businesses that are expanding, as well as a lot of intro meetings for Olivia, since she is now full-time, so she's getting out and meeting a lot of the businesses in her sector. We held the virtual 2022 Southwest Nova Scotia Agriculture Day. So this was a bit of a switch from the last number of years. It was always in person. Because of the number of COVID cases at the time we were planning it, we switched it to virtual, and then had a watch party in New Ross as well. So hopefully next year that will be in person again. Sponsorship updates, we had 1 in Q4. We did complete appraisals for the land in East River Point. There was an inquiry around that. That was completed, however, nothing is moving forward on that at this point in time, but we do have the numbers. And then events levy discussions have gone underway. So I think that's it for economic development.
I'm gonna pile on quickly, just to add that the Association of Municipal Administrators Conference is gonna be held at Oak Island in June. And the hotel is fully booked now. The resort is fully booked. I expect 100, 120 registrants. We've included Chad and his team are gonna facilitate a Castle Rock visit. We will have some local talent participating at one of the receptions, but some of the speakers include Don Oliver. Senator Don Oliver is going to speak to us about his experiences on Parliament Hill and how municipalities can, I think, advance diversity, equity, diversity, and inclusion. We've got A for Adventure coming. I don't know if you listen to Jan and Chris. Matt Risser's going to talk to us about some of the things town of Lunenburg's doing, municipal planning strategy, land use bylaw, and a few other local initiatives. So that's an event in June, conference in June.
You might have been in trouble for that.
This is a comment on the social media and the municipality of Chester Facebook, as well as towards Chester municipality. I found it interesting within the top end of each. Tangle Island is what is way up there, right? So when you think of the municipality of Chester and the connection with Tangle Island, but within the top 10 pages of our Facebook site, as well as towards Chester's, right? It's on the Tangle Island. So I think that's, it's just all good stuff to know.
Okay, your wine.
Oh, actually, that one, I think we could have removed from the agenda.
Oh, good.
We don't pass,
No?
we don't do
Oh,
second
we
reading.
didn't, oh, we gave
No.
notice, okay.
Okay, so I'm on to 8.1.
No, thanks.
Do you need to do first reading?
Okay. Somebody move, we approve first reading.
Of what? That's what I thought I do.
Second.
Discussion, all those in favor, opposed, motion carried. If we didn't need it, it doesn't hurt. Okay. Correspondence from Donna Whitford requesting council consider a dust amendment bylaw.
Abatement.
Abatement bylaw, sorry, Gary.
And the other one, Mary Cambria, I'm saying.
Yes, this is, they're all sort of in the same.
That has to do, of course, with tearing down the apartment building for the new structure that we're about to hear about. So
Yes.
what do we do with something?
Well, I mean, you can send it to staff to, if you want to try to develop one. I'm not sure what it would look like or how you could go, but that's.
I noticed both of these are associated with demolitions.
Yes.
We can look at our building bylaw, we issue demolition permits.
Yes,
So maybe we could consider having provisions in there that when we issue a permit, that they have an abatement program.
I think there are legitimate concerns that have been raised. I think we at least need to look at it and see if there's something we can do.
yes.
And then we can decide if we want to do it, but we need to see what we can do.
Chad, you want to speak?
Yeah, I'm just gonna let you know that one of the things that between myself, and Manny and Krista, we're looking at the process that we currently use to issue demolition permits. And so currently there isn't anything in there related to dust, but we're looking at being a little bit more, I guess, inclusive in everything that we include in that. So right now we don't talk about, rodent control, which has come up in the past, or, some of those other issues. Making sure that people properly disconnect if they're connected to central sewer, proper electrical disconnection, those kind of things. So as part of, reviewing that process, we could include dust control as part of that, especially if, because I think it's very dependent on the situation as well, the location of the house. So if there was no other houses located within, 100 meters, it's probably not a big deal. But if it's somewhere centrally located with other residents close by, then we may want to, provide some suggestions in terms of, providing water, on the, as part of the
Control
demolition process, to control some of the
Yeah,
dust.
I know that if it's dealing with asbestos removal, that we have some processes in place, but. Yeah, so if staff would look at that and bring back a report to council on what options we would have.
And as a matter of course, do we respond to these letters from staff saying that we're looking into it, or?
Well, we can certainly do that.
I would like that, I'd like them to know that we've discussed it, take it seriously, and looking into it.
Okay, we can do that.
Sorry about this phone. This is the municipal phone, which I have no idea how to use, so someone can show me how I can use that.
Tina, show them how to.
Put it under your foot,
Make it quiet.
I was checking my computer and my other
Oh.
phone. my back.
Show them how to mute it on the side.
Yeah.
Pull up silent mode.
Yeah.
Sorry about that, it was disturbing. I just didn't know which one it was, and I didn't know how to be sure.
I turned it up.
So we
Turn it up.
I'm gonna call you. No.
Okay, so we have 8.3, request regarding the International Day of Homophobia and Transphobia. Draft proclamation included. Somebody want to move that we make that proclamation in the usual manner?
And I think they've asked for a flag.
It seems to me they did too.
I think Jennifer said it was the pride flag, so we've got.
So they're asking for the pride flag to go up for Mason.
Okay. Moved, seconded,
Why does it speak so much about Quebec in this,
I don't know.
in this proposed?
That's where the request came from.
Speaks about the Quebec Charter of Human Rights and all this. Is it,
I think they're trying to get an international day going, to get some momentum for the International Day Against Homophobia and Transphobia. So they're looking at doing that across Canada. So we continue to make history in Canada and internationally. So they're asking us to join other municipalities across Canada to do this.
So what about the flag issue?
This pride flag,
Okay.
we have it.
We have the pride.
Oh, I thought it was a different flag.
Well,
Sorry.
I just heard.
Yeah, we sent a pride, or yes.
So this would be to declare it in the usual fashion and to put the flag up at the appropriate time.
That's the request.
Yeah, I made the motion, I'd like to hear some discussion on it. Not appropriate, and I see nothing wrong with it. I know some of the references in the proclamation may be not directly related. I think the thought behind it is the right thought. I know there's no second for the motion at this point, but
We have a seconder,
I'll second.
I didn't, oh, we already did. So.
yeah, discussion.
again, you know, some concerns have been expressed about some references in it. Is it something that we're happy with in its present format? Or is it something that we would? I don't want to dismiss it, right? Like you have thoughts on it, something that we should.
the only thought I have is that if there's something that should be referencing instead of the Quebec Charter or whatever, let's just do it. Just don't want
It's a good point.
I just don't want to slough it off and then do it wrong.
No, I don't agree with that, so.
No,
So is it time sensitive?
Yes, if it's May 17th is the day that they're
Yes,
asking
next
for, so we wouldn't have.
I'm fine with it. Just maybe we just ask them if it's supposed to say Quebec Charter in there, or if it's something Canada Charter or whatever like that.
Yeah, they sent the draft resolution across Canada, so you could either adopt this one as is, or you could give us direction to amend it to a Nova Scotia specific one, and we could send that out by
That's
email.
fine if they like it.
Well, I don't know if there's Nova Scotia Charter of Human Rights and Freedoms recognized. I don't have a clue.
Yeah, I don't know either.
We should take a Canadian charter,
We have a Canadian charter.
Canadian charter. I think we should just reference that.
Yeah.
And the second recital should reference Nova Scotia.
I think be prepared to amend the motion.
Society.
To make those changes.
One other option would be to just remove the first two whereas
first two whereas
clauses and just
clauses.
start at the third whereas.
We despite recent efforts, we're, yeah, just take
So
out this.
it
I don't know if we can write in any
recognizes
of
the
that.
initiative
Yeah.
started in Quebec, but I think it's just a more broader general.
Yeah, take out the first two paragraphs.
I'll amend the motion to do that.
Okay, move the seconder agreed.
Yes.
Any further discussion on the motion? All those in favor? Opposed, motion is carried. Oh, yes, 8.4, correspondence regarding from Bell Canada regarding cell phone coverage updates from Municipality of Chester.
So council directed staff to send a letter to Bell regarding their response to our first letter. And then since then, we've also sent a letter to the federal government as well, and copied local MLAs, and we copied, I think, the Minister of Innovation and Development, a couple ministers on there. So this is the response to Bell to our first letter. And what they're saying is that there had been some upgrades that had happened. and that they've completed some new sites and they have some more work planned
Yeah,
that should improve service, but you see the response, so.
well, I mean, there's nothing you can do to respond to this.
Well,
Yeah.
they say that they fixed it in July of last year.
Yeah.
I would suggest we should ask them to come down to the bank and have them call our headquarters.
Yeah, yeah, good point.
No,
It's not fixed.
no, it's not fixed, of course not. But
I think that was what was reflected in the letter we sent to the federal government, is that Bell saying it was fixed.
There's more work to be done, they said.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't know what to do. Well, we sent a letter off to the feds. Isn't it?
Yeah, the manager.
Okay. 9.1, I think. Community development. Private road name. Who's dealing with this? Not this complicated, I don't think, but.
These are pretty straightforward, so, of course, Cecilia wasn't able to attend today, but we do have two new street names, and so one is Constellation Lane and the other is Willow Bay Lane. And so the report, Sylvia outlined the process, so she followed usual process, and so those were the names that were presented, and there was quite a few back and forth, especially with the Willow Bay Lane. There was multiple suggested options, and that's the one that they
Settled on.
And of course, we had conversations, communications with councilors and fire chiefs, and so everyone seems to be open or infrastructure and operations department, and so everyone seems to be in agreement that both of those names are appropriate and suitable, and so we're just looking for approval from council today for both of those.
Somebody want to move it be approved?
I'll move that those names be approved.
Second. Discussion. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion's carried. Okay. Appointing the building official. Well, I mean, that should be checked too. Yes, I think it's simple, but.
Yeah, this is pretty straightforward as well. So since 2018, as part of our work that we're doing around shared services, at any time that any of the municipal units involved with shared services, if there are new staff that come on board or that get certified, that we cross appoint them between municipal units, so that if there's an instance where those staff need to provide service, whether it's, for example, our staff providing service to Modal, for example, or vice versa, that we have the ability to do that, and they can't do that unless they're appointed by council. And so in this particular instance, we have Bruce Parks that has received his building official certification, and so so we'd like to do that cross appointment specifically related to that. So you may have recalled that Bruce was previously appointed, that was related to fire inspection previously. So this is just as he becomes certified that we ensure we do that cross appointment. So that recommendation today is to appoint Bruce Parks as building official and special constable.
Somebody want to make that motion?
So moved.
Second. Discussion.
I just want to add, probably not, I wonder how long it took him to get his designation, that, it's been hard.
Yeah, he's been working on it for
Quite a while.
and of course, he was continuing to do his fire inspection work as well. So,
Good.
so yes, that just kind of
Well, that's good.
progressed. So I mean, I'm not sure what the exact time
Yeah.
period was, but it's taking time.
Any further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion's carried. 9.4 resolution for Provincial Capital Assistance Program, Flood Risk Infrastructure Investment Program.
So we're looking to apply for 2 grants for the 2 distinct projects. So the Flood Risk and Infrastructure Investment Program and the Provincial Capital Assistance Program. The deadline for this intake was announced on April 15th, and the deadline is today. So Fred and I are just sort of chasing down some details and finalizing these applications, and all being well, we'll get those in. Just briefly then, so the 2 projects So for FRIP, that's the flood risk. FRIP, yeah. So this addresses the Henry Lake culvert. And so this is an issue around, back in 2013, and Chad, if I'm, do correct me if I'm wrong, but back in 2013, there was a collapse of the trail that went over the
Oh,
culvert.
there's the one that's gonna keep you from counting the driver.
Right.
Yeah.
So that at that time, the proper study was done with provincial approval and we went ahead with the culvert. It's since been reported that culvert may not be the correct size. So this is in response to some changing regulations, both federally and provincially. So as a result, what we're proposing is this project that would do two things. One, that it would ensure that the culvert is the correct size. So there's the infrastructure piece to ensure that it's both climate resilient, to ensure that floodway works properly. And then the second piece, which isn't an important detail for the purpose of this grant, but still important for the project overall, is the sort of ecological aspect in terms of ensuring fish passage for fish migration between the lake and Mahone Bay.
Yeah, fish won't be dead and end up in my yard, yes.
That's right. So that's that project. It's a total of estimated 88,500. The way that program works is the municipality would be responsible for 50%. Hence the resolution required as part of the submission that signals councils municipalities commitment to the project. This is an unbudgeted item. So if the application is successful, we'd have to bring that back to council for council's approval for that.
That was some sort of funds.
Right. The second project is the Provincial Capital Assistance Program. This is for some design Otter Point wastewater treatment plant upgrades. So again, as you all know, the work that we've recently completed with the wastewater service study certainly identified Otter Point as being a priority in terms of ensuring it meets regulatory requirements in terms of effluent quality. So what we're sort of bringing forward then is that we submit this application for the design work. So then we'd be shovel ready for when whatever decision council wishes to take about the actual construction of that item. So the project cost would be $50,000. So $25,000 for the municipality. Again, this is currently an unbudgeted item. So we would, pending the results of the grant, we would bring this back to council.
Anybody questions? Somebody prepared to approve those two projects? Our share subject to receiving.
Yeah. So there's those two formal resolutions that we would submit to the application.
Yeah. Well, that's what I was asking, if there was approve those two formal resolutions.
I would.
Somebody want to do it? Move. Seconded? Discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion's carried.
Thank you all.
Thank you, John.
Okay. You're on to district grant requests, I think.
Yes. Chad's regular, right, Chad?
Jump on our plan.
Oh, yeah.
So we have several district grants now that we're into a new budget year, and we've had some applications that have come forward, and so they're all included in your package today. And I guess on the top sheet is the usual spreadsheet, and so we've kind of gone from a full spreadsheet to a blank spreadsheet as it is the start of the new fiscal year. So we had several requests that have come through. I'm not sure how you would like to proceed.
Let's deal with them one at a time,
Through this
just
one
that
at a
way,
time. Okay.
make life simpler.
Okay, so perhaps the first one is the Forest Heights Community School. So there's obviously prom this year is getting back to some resemblance of normal prior to COVID. And so they have a request that has come through, and this one is a little bit different in that there is a request for all 7 districts to participate in supporting the prom. And so
I'm fine with that.
I'm fine with that one.
Oh, me too.
Yep.
Motion to approve.
Second.
All those in favor?
Can I ask a question about this first? I understand that the schools no longer are going to be having proms there. It seems like they aren't anyway. Is there when I can't remember who it is that called me, but somebody called me about this. And
Yeah.
Sort of
Yeah.
They indicated that this is not something that, basically it's gonna be ongoing.
Yeah, I didn't hear that from them, but I know that, because of COVID, and then they couldn't do it, and then, yeah, whatever. I mean, this isn't the first time we've funded them.
Yeah, yes, I know because of COVID, but I'm just wondering if it's gonna return to the schools or if it becomes an ongoing thing, then maybe we might want to just create some sort of a line item thing where we provide some small amount of money to just do something or whatever.
Well, we may if that ends up being the case, but I know that also part of their problem this year was they just couldn't do the fundraising because of COVID.
Yeah, that's why I suggest.
Yeah.
Because typically they fundraise. to
Yes, and they would
support this
raise a
event.
big bunch of the money themselves, but this year they just.
And they're also raising money. They're at my door, I know.
Yeah,
Very.
but they didn't hold the events and they couldn't.
No, I fully support this, but I also think it's not something we look at every year, see what the circumstances are, and see where it's offsite, because this one is offsite, I understand, that's part of the expense.
Yeah, that's fine. I just didn't know
And
if
it may
it
be
is
ongoing,
returning.
yeah.
I don't know if it's returning to the school again or.
I'm not sure either.
In the past, they've always sort of, we promoted, or community promoted safe graduations as well.
Yeah.
So I think there's always a role for us to make sure that.
Oh, yeah, and we did this song each year, the other year for them because they couldn't do anything else.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So any further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed, motion's carried. Okay, District 2 Hubbard's Lions Club, $2,000 septic system repair.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor? Opposed, motion's carried. District 3 Chester Municipal Heritage. Oh, sorry, District 2 Through the Years Daycare Community Center, $4,000 heat pumps.
2,000, and I'd make a motion to approve the 2,000.
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor? Opposed, motion's carried. District 3 Municipal Heritage Society, July 1st, and celebration of Canada Day and Garden Party.
We're gonna have some discussion on this, I may, and Chad and I, others have talked about it. Of course, support the Heritage Society, and I don't support this at some level. Right, just help me here as it relates, this is a district grant request. And I understand they're also requesting a council grant for some other project, I assume, not this project.
Correct.
This is in their letter, they said celebration will include members of the entire municipality of the District of Chester held in the village. But it reaches out to the whole municipality. My reluctance in funding fully $3,000 is it pretty much estimates my budget right in the first request and you rated. I want to support them. I don't know how people feel about it being more the same as the school one. I'm not saying exactly, but how should it work as it relates to municipal event? Should other council grants be included for a portion of? And I know, well, you just, on yours, it was a $4,000 request, you approved 2.
Yep.
I don't want to nickel and dime these people. I mean, they're great volunteers who do good work. and I want to support this. I just sort of want some input if I could from other councilors.
Well, I think,
See how we
Jerry,
should handle this.
just to speak with you about coming from another district, I have the same position in Russian Shore with the garden party, and that draws from everybody, but, you know, I tend to do it, well, I always have done it out of my district grant and not going to other districts, just even though it's in Rush, you know, it draws from the whole, and you're the same. So that's how I feel about it.
Yeah, me too, because like when they hold the Canada Day in the basin, I mean, they don't depend on people from the basin. How you participate.
Are there any other districts having Canada Day celebrations this year?
I
We have a big one.
I don't really know.
I think the Improvement Association, I think are having a Canada Day event barbecue, that's the plan, but, you know, we're waiting on some other information. But yeah.
And also included in this is the Queen's Jubilee. There's 2 events in here. They're not broken down.
Yeah.
It's your decision, Eric, basically.
I tend to save my district grants for requests. I've got 3 community centers, so I usually tend to save mine for capital type requests. So oftentimes they have repairs or sometimes like I do have one community center that's in dire financial need. So I gave them some money to help them with some capital and some operating last year. So I tend not to fund with my district stuff so much events rather than, that's just the way I look at my district grant, but everybody has their own philosophies.
I'm just sort of looking at past, excuse me, past practices. The Heritage Society grant last year was for the Farmers Market Pavilion to the tune of 2,500. I'm not sure it was that.
That's for architectural drawings or conceptual.
Yeah, that was
drawings?
in part of the initial planning for that project.
Is that the one that's down in the Orley Park? Where is that one?
No, so that is still planned for the just train station.
Are they making a request for the Orley Park project? Do you know, through council, or do you know?
I'm not aware, I'm not sure. So the next council deadline is May 31st, so we would know at that time what projects they would be looking to ask council for
So are
support.
any takers to share in this one?
Couldn't they include this grant for the Canada Day with their grant that
That's what I
they're
was gonna ask.
applying to the municipal council grant?
So it depends on what they're asking for. So if they have a substantial request for that particular project, I know council has tended to not to like multiple projects combined into one application in the past, so we haven't suggested that they do that. I guess
Yeah, because they want to do that big project,
yeah, and so I think that was the idea, that they would request a larger amount through the council grant for that project. And they would use a district grant for the events that they have proposed here. So I think that's the thought process.
I was gonna ask that as well, so great question, but I was also going to ask, if I may, you've got the list from last year.
Yes.
Not that we would base it on, past years, but were there any districts that didn't spend their entire funding? Because maybe, again, Andre's indicated his particular kind of flavor, Abdella, in terms of what you're doing, and you can see my list. I've got organizations for capital costs. I sometimes look at events and will continue to do the same, but I've got my year planned out actually. But if there were any districts that didn't actually spend their full district council grant, they might be a taker.
Well, I'm willing to support it in the sense that, I know there's people from my area that will go to that event, just as they go to Western Shore, but to help you out, I would.
Well, I tell the community, and there's 2 events here. I was thinking I would commit 2,000 for my budget. You want to put 500 or 1,000?
Yeah.
And Sharon, that's good for you because, you just don't have a lot of organizations in your district.
No, I know.
Which is good that you help somebody else.
I have a big one coming in
He's got a ton of
Canaan, probably in the next couple of weeks, but, I would help out.
So I said 2 from my budget and 1 from your budget.
Well, I will,
Or do you want, I'm not putting a number up. I'll say I want to commit 2 from my budget.
Mhm.
And there's 1,000 more we can put.
Right, I know,
Amount.
and then there's the brass band one, which
I know.
we have to
There's other things
talk
coming up
about, yeah,
that are new.
exactly. 500 maybe?
And then we can revisit it, correct, like we did on the one previous last week.
you can, yeah.
Yeah, okay, let's do that.
So I'll make a motion that
2 from you.
2 from me, and I guess you need a second motion and 5 from you.
Yep, I'll second that.
And with the view, like we had in the past, if we need to revisit it after have further discussions with the society, get a little better handle on the other monies they're asking for, get the bigger picture. But I want to let them know, so they're planning this event that they have.
Oh, they have to come back.
So I'll make that a motion.
Got all that
Any
in?
discussion? All those in favor?
Thank you.
Opposed, motion carried. I don't
And I know they kind of, they decided to not do the fireworks because of the cost and.
Yeah, so that and it says in there that that's taking place, and I know it isn't.
But I want further discussion through Carol on this and
Yeah.
advise.
Okay, District 7, Portage Community Center, $500 Oktoberfest.
Any questions?
Just want to know what you want to do.
Oh, absolutely, 100%. I don't need to move it, but yeah, move it.
Second. Discussion, all those in favor?
Doesn't really matter.
Opposed, motion carried. Okay, so we're on to 9.6, infrastructure and operations sidewalk design award request for projects.
No, heavy lifting before.
Yeah.
Should be.
Morning, Council. Thanks for your kind attention. So it's, as mentioned, the modal shift, the new connections funding. It's a request for proposal for 4 new sidewalks intended for construction this year. They are located in Pubbets, Highway 329 to the trail, constituting 60 metres. Chester Basin, Highway 3 to Trailhead, which is 370 metres. Chester, Duke Street to Victoria Street, 660 metres. And Chester, our health centre, Pig Loop Road, which constitutes 160 metres. The initial project list of sidewalks was approved by Council on September 3rd, 2020. Council also incorporated those projects into a 5-year capital improvement plan that was approved in December 2020. This RFP covers the first 4 of a planned 11 sidewalks to be completed by December 2027. The approved budget amount for this fiscal year of 2022-23 is 107,147. The contract award amount is 99,959, both of which plus HST. Both submission amounts were below the budgeted amount. The 5% local bonus did not apply to the contract because it was in excess of 50,000. And in summary, the RFP scoring criteria split 70% for experience, qualifications, and references, and 30% is based on the actual price itself. A breakdown of the actual criteria is on the next page. Infrastructure and operations received 2 submissions for design. During evaluations, it was determined that more clarification from the 2 proponents was needed to compare them evenly. Scoring clearly showed that EXP had presented the design that most fully addressed the project task. Clarification was requested for the individual pricing. It didn't quite meet our requirements listed in the RFP. And the options are direct staff to award the contract to EXP services, and option B is to direct staff to for further information.
On them, Bill, got that grant money to do it. Somebody prepared to move that we.
So
Second. Second is discussion. All those in favor? Opposed, motion carried. Can't wait to see it done.
Can't wait to see the 11 done.
Well, all you.
December
Well, you
27th.
gotta start someplace.
Can't wait.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay. Fire contract. That's public, right? This one.
Yep, so the village commission last night approved the following motion. The Village of Chester Commission moves to enter into an agreement with the municipality of the District of Chester to establish a joint committee to provide fire and emergency service through the Chester Village Volunteer Fire Department to the area served by the Chester Volunteer Fire Department. So if council is prepared to approve and enter into that agreement, we need a motion to approve the agreement and authorize the warden and the clerk to execute that agreement.
So
Second.
Discussion. All those in favor?
Can you third?
Opposed, motion carried. And we're gonna sign it on Monday?
Yep, there'll be, we'll sign on Monday. Yeah. We'll make arrangements.
so we won't make it, well, it's public now, of course,
It's
but
public.
when will we do the?
Press release?
Yeah.
We have a press release already, so we can
Yeah, I know.
do that. We can do that today unless you want the photos out of it, then we wait till Monday.
Yeah, I think our press release should wait for Monday, and if we want to send out something as to councilors that are directly involved.
Okay, well, we can wait till Monday till we get the
And I
photo
want
signed.
the draft you gave us previously,
Yes.
we've made some changes. In that,
It's what we sent to them as a final version on Monday.
They changed nothing.
And they, yeah.
Not for the press release, but you're putting Nancy's name on it.
Oh, the press release, yeah,
Talking
sorry.
about the press release.
I'm
not the
gonna
agreement.
Yeah, the changes were the changes that Nancy requested, and I added those to it and put her name on it. Yeah, I can send you a final version of it.
Can I see the final
Yeah,
version?
I'd like-
sure.
Could you send it up to?
Yeah,
Yep.
that'd be great, thank you.
Okay. Do you want a 5-minute break or do you want to just straight in do this in camera? It'll only take a minute. Oh, sorry, yes, I forgot, Jerry.
You didn't forget.
I did. Well, it's on this other page. I had flipped over so much.
Oh, this.
New development in Chester, you want to talk about?
Yeah, I'm looking for information. Some of us have gotten a number of phone calls, just looking for information, what is happening. Corner Valley in Maine, the other streets, Queen. Apartment building had been demolished, and that was sort of the source of these 2 letters on dust. Rumor is there's a hotel going up there. I assume that's. What information is public, what information can we talk about, and what is proprietary? Good to know that.
Darkest don't tell us.
Yeah, so I just happened to be here this morning when I heard this on the agenda. I thought I could stay and try to provide as much as we can in terms of public information. So what I can say is that there has been a development permit issued for the site on Main and Valley. It is for a hotel use. The whole stretch along Valley Road falls under our central commercial zoning. That's the same as what we have down on Pleasant, up along Duke as well. And the current secondary planning strategy speaks to, and of course, we're in a review, so maybe this has changed since 2004 when the plan was
Operating
written.
under the old.
But the way we're operating now, it speaks to the eventual desire to basically extend our current commercial area out along Valley to connect with Highway 3 and sort of have a corridor of commercial into the village. So the zoning has been in place there for many years. And in that central commercial zone, hotels are a permitted use as of right. So they're subject to some setbacks. I don't have those numbers in front of me, but certainly provide that.
They have to meet.
They have to meet some certain yard setbacks. They have to, any signage that they have would have to, of course, comply. That may be done as a second permit. Sometimes people will apply for the structure first and then they'll work out what they want their signage to look like down the road. And also they have to comply with our parking requirement in the land use bylaw, which in the case of a hotel or motel type use is 1.1 parking spaces per room rental. So in terms of other information that's public, the face of a development permit is public, but the supporting documents and the plans that go along with it are not. You can make an application, not you, but any member of the public can make an application for a FOIPOP, and that would go through our FOIPOP officer, Dan Pittman, to determine whether or not that information could be released that way. So the permit face does have some information on it in terms of it would have the yard setbacks and it may have some of the building dimensions, but it does not have what many people have been seeking, and we've had a lot of calls in our office as well, which is what does the building look like? And it does not include those building design. Those are supporting documents to the permit and would have to go through the FOIPOP process.
Can you answer one question? Because I know there is another concern. What, in terms of water supply, what requirements do they have to meet?
So virtually none, other than through their financing, whatever they need for their, more construction mortgage financing, which is completely out of our hands. So the land use bylaw through as of right development doesn't have any requirements to prove potable water. What I should say is there has not been a building permit issued yet for the site. So they've got their development permit, that's normal. You get that first and then apply for your building permit. My understanding is that in order to receive a building permit, you do require a sewer or septic approval. So they will have to comply with the sewer bylaw. I'm not aware that a sewer permit's been issued yet, so they would have to go through that process first. But as far as I understand it, you do not, in order to receive a building permit, need to show that you have a potable source of water.
I just wasn't sure.
Yeah, and that's definitely a question that we've been asked a lot. What about water? And so through the as of right development, through development agreements, we do have policies on providing information on water, but through the as a right process,
It's not,
currently, there's nothing in there, so.
so they met the current.
Yeah, and so I've had that question as well, and I mean, I didn't issue the permit myself, but what I can say is that I'm confident that the design meets the provisions of the land use bylaw because Heather's issued a development permit for it. Another point that may be of interest is it's outside of our architectural control area, so it would not be subject to some of those architectural controls.
Yeah.
That's about all we can say at
That's
the
the way it
moment,
is.
I believe,
I
yeah.
still have some questions.
Okay, Derek?
Sewer capacity. Is that an issue?
I can't answer that, so I turn potentially, maybe I don't put it on the spot.
Can I get it back to you on that? I'll speak to Fred and say what it costs.
Okay, and what's the sewer permit that they're required? And you said they need a sewer permit.
Right, again, that's not my purview, again, I think that's through.
Yeah, it's the municipal engineer.
So then what do they have to produce to get a sewer permit? You need to get capacity in that instance.
Yeah, can I get that information? So.
Most times, if I can just jump in, most times if you're in a serviced area, especially commercial, you're required to provide a site servicing diagram to the regulator, which would be us in this case, and providing that's acceptable to the design and to the municipal engineer and an approval is issued.
Is there any part of that process that becomes public, or is it all administrative?
I think it's all of them, as far as I'm aware.
Do we have any idea what the time frame is when this is going to be built?
Not that I'm aware of, and I know, once the permit's issued, there is development permits valid for 18 months. Although there is the option to renew it, similar with the building permit, although again, the building permit hasn't been issued yet.
No, the building permit has been applied for.
I'm not aware.
Is that something that will be public?
No,
I
once the
understand.
permit was issued, it would
Not
be,
before.
but not before, right, correct. They did have a demolition permit in place, which I know came up earlier through the discussion around dust. So that was issued.
Would it be appropriate, Mr. Warden, to, firstly, before that, do we know, and is it public, the name of the applicant?
If it appears on the permit face, it would certainly be public. I'm not, not having it in front of me, I wouldn't want to say just in case I'm incorrect, but it typically would have the property owner would be listed. So, and I believe the property owner is under a company name. I can certainly follow up.
Can you provide Derek with a copy of the permit, because that is, that
Yes,
is.
that part is.
Mr. Warden, I think it'd be appropriate, and this is not an adversarial way anyway, to ask the developer to be prepared to appear before us at some point to discuss the project. We know it's not a requirement. I think there's great public interest in this. It's a big deal.
We can always make the request. I'd like to know what he plans to do exactly. I mean, I know of so many rooms and all this, but I don't know what it looks like. He might want to share that with
I
us.
wouldn't want to put him on the gun. That would not be.
No, he doesn't have to do it,
But he doesn't have to come.
or she,
Or them.
but you could inform him that council would like.
We could reach
To have
out
a
and
presentation
say there's
and
been
that's
interest
why-
expressed and offer to appear before council, absolutely.
And I think that would be appropriate, and people that may want to listen and get information.
Yeah.
Directly.
But we won't hold it as a public hearing where he's under pressure and has to answer questions.
Absolutely not. I think that make that clear. He doesn't have, he would not have to appear. Let's find out what we can, because
Oh, I know, there's a good deal of interest.
a lot of interest out there, a lot of legitimate questions, water being one. But anyway, I also understand there's a lot of information that is proprietary. We have to respect that. Has council ever made a full application? Is that something council has ever done?
We pump ourselves.
No. To get this information.
Council can.
Yeah, the reason why council could, will, but I think if the request, when Dan reviews this, if there's information that is determined to be public, that we would release that publicly.
Yeah.
So I think I expect one review is all that's required, and I understand the request is in. So,
Yeah, I just wanted to ask you directly some of these questions, and I appreciate it.
Yeah.
And, you know, there will be more, the interest in this is not gonna go away.
Yeah.
Comment. Maybe going forward, I know we don't get notified of every permit and whatever, but I'm just wondering if we can get heads up if there is a permit that's issued. It would be nice to know, especially this was a big development. And I was asked some questions and I didn't know anything about it. And you feel like you're, well, when you're not aware and the public knows already, it would be nice to just have an email to be informed if there's a permit issue. I know we can't have the details, but I, as a counselor, would like to be informed.
Yeah.
Without any.
We do that.
We do that now.
Okay, yeah.
Well, in the district, in your own district.
That's true. So, did you get informed of that there was a permit issue?
Did I get an email that I haven't read? I don't remember.
Yeah, you probably did.
You probably may have gotten an email.
I had
Yeah.
some questions on the hotel. Of course, I didn't know anything about it. And,
Yeah, I mean,
but it doesn't bother me too much. I mean, I don't,
That's
you know, there's always gossip. Yeah.
we make the rules, and they issue the permits based on the rules.
Did I get an email?
That's the process. It automatically sends one out to everybody, so you should have gotten an email.
May have gotten an email.
Within your
Sorry,
Sorry,
in your district.
it sends it out to the district counselor.
It's vague
Once it's
though. It
approved.
doesn't have a lot of detail.
No,
It is, it is wrong.
It just tells you what's been issued.
Yeah, it doesn't, no more information than what you would have now. It would just say that a permit had been issued, I think.
Just a heads up, something going on, then if you want to ask further
That's right.
questions.
That's
You
right.
can stop at the office, and ask.
Okay, this is helpful. Thank you.
Okay, so that's it for all the new businesses, to the very best of my knowledge. The in-camera things would take moments.
Motion to go in camera.
Oh, we should get a motion for that special council meeting. We raised it at the front of the meeting, but we didn't get a motion.
So moved.
That's so to hold the special council meeting, the first committee of the whole meeting in June 2nd. It would be 8:45.
Same as ours.
The purpose of that, we'll have on that agenda, the sidewalks.
Second reading of that.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Did you get a second over there? It was Floyd. did. Discussion, all those in favor? Opposed, motion carried. Motion to go in camera.
Second.